Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Nityalila Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Sutara Sutta Shri Sriman. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Let's see how continue reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Additional Pastimes, chapter titled A Summer in Montreal. While Prabhupada was in Montreal, many of his disciples from the United States came to visit him. They were serving on his behalf, some of them thousands of miles away, and the urge to see him would grow until it impelled them to travel to Montreal. Sometimes these visitors would be newcomers who had joined one of Prabhupada's temples and had heard about him from his disciples, but had never seen him. Prabhupada was always happy, of course, when his disciples remained in their posts, executing their respective duties. But he was also glad when they came to see him, visit him. Nanda Kishore Prabhu relates, I walked into the room, and Srila Prabhupada greeted me very enthusiastically with a smile and said, American Vaishnava. I paid obeisances, sat down, and we began to talk. I had heard that Krishna could be in the heart of every living entity at the same time. So I asked Prabhupada how it was possible. He began by saying, just try to understand. So I tried, I strained and squinted to show that I was really trying to understand. And Prabhupada continued, just like the sun is over your head and mine, and is over the head of someone who may be 1,000 miles away. That is because the sun is great. Similarly, Krishna is so great that he is simultaneously in the hearts of all living entities. And I understood. He had said, try to understand, and because I was hearing, I did understand. I was trying to understand, and I was hearing from the pure devotee. As I was leaving his room, he waved his right hand in the air, sitting back in a very relaxed way, smiling. He said, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. Krishna Das. I had heard that Prabhupada was planning to travel abroad and that he wanted to take several devotees with him, and that whoever wanted to go should save his money. So I got a job with a jewelry firm. And then I had a vacation while Prabhupada was in Montreal. While Prabhupada was in Montreal, Uddhava and I were having our vacation at the same time, and we decided over breakfast one morning to go see Prabhupada in Montreal. In 1 hour, we were packed. Wearing suits, we hitchhiked from San Francisco to New York in 3 days. When we got to Montreal, Gaurasundar said, well, Prabhupada is about to have lunch. Would you care to join him? We said, yes. Uddhava and I went in. And Prabhupada was immediately very thankful that we had come so far to visit him. But as we had come to lunch so late, there wasn't really enough prasadam for 2 guests. So Gaurasundar first served Prabhupada, and we sat there with our empty plates. Then Prabhupada said, what about their food? Govinda Dasi went to get something for us, and Prabhupada said to me, you are very thin. You look sickly. You should eat more. So he proceeded to take food of his plate and put it on my empty plate, and he told me to eat. He said I should eat 6 chapatis a day. He gave me a whole diet to follow so I could gain weight. During lunch, a mouse came into the room. And Gaurasundar captured it. Prabhupada joked about how the mouse had been a devotee in his past life and had come back in this life to eat prasadam off the floor. Afterwards, we paid our obeisances. I touched my head to Prabhupada's foot, and he got up and walked over and rubbed our heads. Jagadish Das. When I entered Prabhupada's apartment, I got the most amazing feeling. Kirtanananda Maharaj and Hayagriva were there talking to Prabhupada about New Vrindavan. They were saying that they had bought some land and Prabhupada was encouraging them. I just sat in the back and listened to what was going on. Prabhupada's presence was very strong. I felt small, and I had the feeling that he knew everything about me and that I couldn't pretend to be someone big, although previously I had always thought of myself as being a little advanced. But in Prabhupada's presence, I couldn't pose as anything, because I understood that he knew everything about me and could understand my mentality. So I just sat with my face turned downwards. Once in a while, I would look up at him. I was in Prabhupada's room for about half an hour. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say. So at the end, while everyone was leaving, I bowed down and let the others leave first. Then, as I was about to leave, I told Prabhupada that I was chanting 16 rounds a day and that I expected to get initiated later. He welcomed me to stay in the Montreal temple, and I fumbled some reply. This was generally, in Prabhupada's presence, it was very difficult to make conversation. You felt that Prabhupada is such an important person. There's nothing that really needs to be spoken, at least with regards to our relationship to him. Because, as Jagadish is relating, Prabhupada knew everything about us. We didn't have to say anything. What is that Prabhupada said? Face is the index of the mind. Just like you go to the index in the back of the book, you want to see something in some particular area, some chapter, some verse. So Prabhupada could easily tell what was on a person's mind just by their presence. And all of us have practical experience of this in Prabhupada's association. Okay, next devotee, Vaikuntanath. Vaikuntanath was the husband of Sharadiya. You've seen the new painting in the loft? You know? When you walk into the loft now, the first room, if you turn, and on the wall, there's a painting there of Krishna and the gopis. So that painting was painted by Mother Sharadiya, Vaikuntanath's wife. So that painting is there now hanging in that room. Very nice painting. So you should take a look. Vaikuntanath, I was in great anxiety because I had just returned from my draft board physical. But as soon as I walked into Prabhupada's room, all my anxiety completely melted. As soon as I came into his presence, I thought how wonderful he is. Spiritual truth became real in his presence. Shivananda. I had come to Montreal to visit Prabhupada, but Gaurasundar and Govinda Dasi didn't want many devotees going with him on the morning walk. One morning, I was out for a walk by myself when I met Prabhupada. He motioned to me and said, "Come on." As we walked, I mentioned to Prabhupada that I had traveled in various places in Europe and all over America. And he said, "Oh, yes? You must go to these places and open some temples." At that time, the word was out that Prabhupada wanted some of his disciples to go to London and open a temple there. So as I was walking along with Srila Prabhupada, we were just about to cross the street. Prabhupada turned to me and said, "Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who is spreading my teachings of Bhagavad Gita to the devotees is the most dear to me, and there is never one who is more dear." Then Prabhupada added, "Our business is to become dear to Krishna." That started me thinking about opening up a center somewhere. Shivananda was the devotee who opened up the German yatra. At that time, he was 17 years old when he went to Germany. 17 years old. Prabhupada empowered everyone if they wanted. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 11th chapter, text 7, chapter titled Swayambhuva Manu addresses Dhruva Maharaj. Manur Uvacha Alang Vatsati Roshena. Are we on text 7? I can tell from the bewildered look on the boys' faces. Just now coming. Ready? Manu Uvacha Alang Vatsati Roshena Tamodvarena Papmana Yena Punya Jananetan Avadistvamanagasa. Please chant. Mano Vacha Alang Vaktatarosena Tamodvarena Papmana Yena Punya Jananetan Anadistvamanagasa. Mano Vacha Alang Vatsati Rosena Tamodvarena Papmana Yena Punya Jananetan Avadistvamanagasa. Mano Vacha Alang Vatsati Rosena Tamodvarena Papmana Yena Punya Jananetan Avadistvamanagasa. Mano Vacha Alang Vatsati Rosena Tamodvarena Papmana Yena Punya Jananetan Avadistvamanagasa. Mano Vacha Tamodvarena Papmana Yena Punya Jananetan Avadistvamanagasa. Ladies, Mano Vacha Alang Vatsati Roshena Manu Vacha. Manu said, Alam, enough. Vatsa, my dear boy, Atiroshena, with excessive anger. Tamadvarena, the path of ignorance. Papmana, sinful. Jena, by which Punya Janan, the yakshas, Etan, all these, Avadi, you have killed, Tvam, you, Anagasa, offenseless. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Manu said, I'll read and then you can repeat. Lord Manu said, my dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is a path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are actually not offenders. Please repeat. Lord Manu said, my dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by by killing yakshas who are not actually offenders, who are actually not offenders. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada. In this verse, the word atiroshena means with unnecessary anger. When Dhruva Maharaj went beyond the limits of necessary anger, his grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, immediately came to protect him from further sinful action. From this, we can understand that killing is not bad, but when killing is done unnecessarily, or when an offenseless person is killed, such killing opens the path to hell. Dhruva Maharaj was saved from such sinful action because he was a great devotee. A Kshatriya, warrior, is allowed to kill only for maintenance of the law and order of the state. He is not allowed to kill or commit violence without reason. Violence is certainly a path leading to a hellish condition of life, but it is also required for maintenance of the law and order of the state. Here, Lord Manu prohibited Dhruva Maharaj from killing the yakshas because only one of them was punishable for killing his brother, Uttama. Not all of the yaksha citizens were punishable. We find in modern warfare, however, that attacks are made upon innocent citizens who are without fault. According to the law of Manu, such warfare is a most sinful activity. Furthermore, at the present moment, civilized nations are unnecessarily maintaining many slaughterhouses for killing innocent animals. When a nation is attacked by its enemies, the wholesale slaughter of the citizens should be taken as a reaction to their own sinful activities. That is nature's law. Om Jnana Tamrandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Amrita Minatasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Bachalam Pangum Lankai Tegaram Yat Kripata Maham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. It's a very timely purport. Anyone can see by the current circumstances that war is prevalent, and according to this purport, we can see that the wholesale slaughter of citizens should be taken as a reaction to their own sinful activities. That is nature's law. So in one sense, the aphorism, what goes around comes around, is simply a reflection of the ancient understanding of the law of karma. Nowadays, people are becoming more familiar with it. You hear the word karma used often, sometimes in the wrong context, but in many times it is appropriately applied. If one understands the science of this, the Bhagavad Gita specifically, and the modes of material nature, he can appreciate everything that takes place in the material world in the proper perspective. In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the purport to verses 4 and 5, Prabhupada gives the definition of intelligence as being able to analyze things in their proper perspective. Right? Some people have what's called knee-jerk reactions based on emotion or misconceptions. But these don't have any positive effect on any outcome specifically. Just like we saw, Dhruva Maharaj was afflicted by excessive anger. So due to some sense of injustice that his brother was killed. But he was incorrectly applying the punishment that should have been directed towards one person. Instead, he was committing wholesale genocide. And so, rightly so, his grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, came to protect him. So this is another point, that the elders in society are meant to be the repository of wisdom. Nowadays, old people are relegated to some retirement village or some old age home. They're not very much appreciated. Although, for the most part, we see traditionally that knowledge is passed down from generation to generation. And in the absence of that, so many incorrect actions are taking place throughout the world. Because those who have experienced these tribulations have great insight how to avoid them. But no one is listening. Everyone is, what is that? The 4 types of intelligence. Everyone has studied that? First type of intelligence is by hearing. So where can one hear from? He has to hear from some authority. If his only authority is his mind, which is a fallible instrument at best, then he's bound to make mistakes. Not just mistakes, the same mistakes that have been repeated since time immemorial. So the first class intelligence is one who understands or learns by hearing. Second class intelligence is one who learns by seeing. He sees a situation and he can understand the purport. And so that's better than third class, but not better than first class. So second class intelligence, he sees something happening. He sees someone touching fire and they get burned. So he understands, oh, I'll not touch fire. First class intelligence means he only hears, don't touch fire. And he doesn't touch it. And he avoids having to suffer the pain. So first and second class intelligence, hearing and seeing. Third class intelligence, the whole material world is going along on this third class intelligence. What is that? Experience. So even after hearing and seeing, still he thinks, maybe I won't get burned. So I'll touch the fire. So of course, this is foolishness. A person in first class and second class intelligence, he condemns that person. He says, what a foolish person. But there's still even a fourth class intelligence. And what is that? Even after hearing, seeing, and experiencing, still he repeats the same mistake again and again. What is the classic and clinical definition of insanity? Who knows? Who knows? Doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. That is the clinical definition of insanity. Doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. And so that's the epitome of fourth class intelligence. So those of us who desire to advance in spiritual life, we have the greatest benediction, is that we evam parampara praptim imam rajasyo vidu. It says that this supreme science is thus understood in a chain of disciplic succession. And the saintly kings understood it in that way. Right? Of course, and Krishna says, but the science as it is appears to be broken. And that is the case. So Krishna used Arjuna to reestablish that break in the link. Just like you can have a chain. It can be very strong, but it's only strongest as its weakest link. Have you ever heard that? Somebody's at the door. And so none of us should desire to be that weak link. Rather, we should strengthen the chain to the extent possible by being dedicated and committed. Otherwise, what is the value of taking initiation and studying the science if one simply abandons it out of some frustration or sentiment. All right, so what is that next? Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Once you try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire submissively and render service to him, the spiritual master. Why? Why should he do that? Because the self-realized soul can impart knowledge to you because he has seen the truth. Tattva darshan, he has seen the truth. And what is that seeing? That seeing is not necessarily with these defective orbs called eyeballs. This is not seeing. Real seeing means sarva shichaham riddhi sanivistoma taksmatiya gyanam aponam cha. Because it says, I am seated in the heart of every living entity, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So sometimes people will call this the inner eye, the third eye. Right? Because it is not a material eye. So when the spiritual master is giving you tattva darshana, he's not saying, look here or look there. No. This looking is all done internally. That's why it's called Atma Tattva Gyan, the science of self-realization. And so Dhruva's grandfather was coming and giving him, because in the heat of the moment, in the battle, the mode of passion is prominent. And so he's on a killing spree. That's the only thing he's focused on. So Swayambhuva Manu can understand. So he comes to give some balance, to give some perspective, to give the wisdom that comes with this position. Swayambhuva Manu is the original Manu, original creator, at least in this particular period of time. And so he is, of course, perfectly capable of imparting this knowledge to his grandson. And we should take this opportunity to think, how can I learn this science better than hearing from someone who has already been involved for 50 years? Right? We see that in our Guru Varga in ISKCON. Most of these devotees now have been devotees for many, many years. So it's a very select group that has taken this responsibility. And they're also held to a higher standard. It's not that we are sentimental in this regard. Everyone has to be proven by his actions. So this is clearly described also in the Bhagavad Gita, that one can tell who is that qualified person. How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? So everything is demonstrated. The word they use is demonstrable. It means you can see it, anybody can see it, that this person is a different person. Just like the devotees who will come in contact with Srila Prabhupada, just like when we first met Prabhupada. Our first impression is that this is not an ordinary person. Externally, it may appear that way. Prabhupada was small in stature, 5'4". 5'4". And most Americans are quite big in that respect. Very few people are that adult size, 5'4". But his presence was so commanding that it filled an entire room. Didn't matter if there was 100 devotees inside of that room or 1,000 devotees. Prabhupada's presence was the sole dominating presence. Even at they had the famous Pandal in Bombay at Cross Maidan, 10,000 people. And Prabhupada was able to command the entire crowd simply by his words. Because he's speaking the absolute truth. So this is the how one understands who is that qualified person. So it's very interesting that everyone who is speaking in the Lilamrita has exactly the same experience. Exactly when they come in contact with Srila Prabhupada. First time, second time, 10th time, doesn't matter. It was always the same. To feel that you're in the presence of someone who is not of this world. You know, if you've never, you know, we have, at least in my background growing up, I was raised in a Catholic household. In a Catholic household, you have many saints. So everybody's praying to some saint, just like in India they have demigods. And there's a whole pantheon of saints. And you go and each one gives some specific benediction. But nobody has ever met a saint, really. Then they made some people some saints, but it was not the same, even to us who were casual observers, that this quality, this elevation to sainthood is something which was arranged by some other persons who themselves had no real knowledge of what is a saint. But even without understanding the definition of what is a saint, anyone who came into contact with Srila Prabhupada knew that this person was of a different quality and caliber. Every single person, didn't matter what their position was, devotee, non-devotee, didn't matter. That's how obvious it is when a person has that presence of the super soul. Someone else at the door. So we have to try to take it seriously that Prabhupada has given us something special. Not that this is a commentary written by someone who's an academic scholar. You know, some people will criticize, Prabhupada was just a Bachelor of Science. What's his qualification? Right? But this is because they see things. What's that verse? Atmavan manyate jagat. Everyone knows that verse? Atmavan manyate jagat. They see things through their own perspective. In American slang, you're seeing things through rose-colored glasses. All right, so you have no real understanding. So you're judging things according to your own mind. And what is my mind? What are my qualifications? And who am I to judge? So these things are like that. Atmavan manyate jagat. So don't try to judge things according to your mind. Try to see things according to the scripture. That's why it says, if someone can enlighten you, Prabhupada came, nobody understood a tato brahma jigyasa. Nobody understood that he is not this body. The first time we were reading this was in Bhagavad Gita. For the soul is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying. He's not slain when body is slain. First time we read this, it was amazing. People never described the soul in that way. There was no perspective. There was no context. They only used the term soul, 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 but nobody understood. What is this? What is the quality of the soul? What is the origin of the soul? So in any case, in this way, we see that there's an opportunity to hear from a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, and one should be very keen to give full attention and not be distracted by some alternate description, not based on knowledge or experience, but solely on some academic understanding. All right? This is why, so when one should not, there's that, one should not try to understand the mind of the saintly person, the sadhu. Should not try to impose his conceptions or misconceptions. How does this person, what is he thinking? And why is he thinking? No. These things are offensive. If one is fortunate and he gets the opportunity to follow in these great souls' footsteps, then his life is perfect. Then his life is perfect. All right? Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Deve Tata Guru. If one has implicit faith in the spiritual master and Krishna, then all the imports of the Vedas are automatically revealed. This is self-realization. The purification of the conditioned soul back to his original constitutional position automatically reveals knowledge according to his desire and performance. All right, Prabhupada said, don't try to see Krishna, just act in such a way that Krishna will see you. So when one has that mood, Krishna very quickly reveals whatever is required for him to progress smoothly in spiritual life. As long as he's chanting Hare Krishna, as long as he's not committing offenses to the holy name or to the Vaishnavas, then his path is clear. But you see these obstacles appear by our own misunderstandings or misdirection. And so this is problematic. Otherwise, there is no problem. The path is completely clear. But just like we saw here that the yakshas, they are very powerful with their black arts. They controlled so many things. If one can exercise such mystic powers to delude such a great soul, such as Dhruva Maharaj, and what to speak of us? The whole world is deluded by Maya. Very difficult to overcome, except for one who is surrendered to Krishna. So Dhruva Maharaj is completely in illusion, even though he's a great soul, even though he had darshan of Narayan and was given benediction like that. So even he was deluded by the power of the yakshas. So what to speak of us? But we, simply by this chanting, can easily become freed from this contamination of material imperfection. And then gradually, as one becomes purified, Chaita Darpana Marjanam, Bhava Mahadavadni Nirvapanam. Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left only these 8 shlokas? Because each one is the essence of everything that exists philosophically, theoretically, metaphorically, ontologically. Everything is there if one carefully studies, and not just some sentimental recitation. Everything is there. But one has to have a little bit of faith. That's why Yasya Devi Parabhaktir. Anyabhilasata sunyam jnana karmadinavatam. By rendering service favorably, then the effects of these previous, like jnana and karma, mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangabhaja, he becomes free from them. Becomes free. So this is one definition of liberation. That he understands his constitutional position in relationship to Krishna. The sambandha. The first step, sambandha. Next step, abhideya. Now he has to engage. Okay, I'm spirit soul. What are the actions? What does the spirit soul do? If you walk up to someone and say, okay, you're a spirit soul, what is your duty? What is your dharma? Everybody likes to use that word dharma. But does anybody understand what is, they have this, in India they have, what do they call it? Manava Dharma. Manav Dharma. What is Manava Dharma? Lokik, what is Manava Dharma? What is that? Yes. Some morals, some restrictions, some instructions, like that. Like Manu Samhita. Has anyone here read Manu Samhita? Just a little bit? Anyone? If you read or understand even Manu Samhita just a little bit, it's impossible for someone to be follow this path strictly. It is so complex. There are so many things to be done and not to be done. In this age of Kali, it is not possible. But yet that is the Dharma Shastra right there. So, but nobody's following. Impossible to follow in Kali Yuga. So better we try for that, what? Kalera dosha nidhi rajanasti eka mahaguna kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangasya jayate. And in this age, an ocean of faults, there's one good thing. Kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sang. You get liberation simply by chanting the holy name. So what does an intelligent person do? If an intelligent person understands that by executing this process I can achieve the highest benefit, why would I want to achieve something that's more difficult? Why would I try to attempt it using a more difficult process? The Empire State Building is, 104 floors. And you have elevators, and you have stairs. So an intelligent person, he understands, if I want to get to the top quickly, I take the elevator. The stairs are available, but they take a long time. And so Prabhupada described the yoga system as a ladder. Yam, niyam, asan, dharana, pratyahara, up to samadhi. Right? But all these processes, all these steps on the ladder can be immediately achieved if one simply takes to the chanting of the holy name. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kolo Nashteva, 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 Gata Anyata. So that is Prabhupada's mercy, that he brought us, he told one devotee, he says, I know a shortcut. One devotee was thinking, Prabhupada's too difficult. So many rules, so many regulations, having to get up early in the morning, having to take cold shower every day. And they're thinking, I have to do this for the rest of my life. Yes? Why not? There's one life. One life to perfection. Instead of what? Repetition of birth and death. Because that is what awaits the person who does not take this process. Repeated birth and death. Sang saradhavanalita loka. So this cycle, this samsara, it is like everyone who's a student, they know what is the symbol for infinity, right? No beginning, no end. And so this is what awaits a person who doesn't know how to break the cycle. And the only way to break the cycle is tadvidi pranipatena pariprashna, is to take shelter of someone who is already free from that cycle. It's like if your hand, you're bound up with tight ropes. That's like the modes of material nature. The word guna, the synonym for guna is rope. So if you're bound up tightly by these three gunas, you cannot get free unless somebody comes by and cuts you loose. So in the Bhagavatam, first canto, there's that description. Chindanti Kovida Tasya. You have to cut this knot of ignorance with the sharp sword of knowledge. So this is not difficult. That famous parable about Alexander, maybe you've studied in history. Alexander the Great was on a roll. He was conquering everything, from Macedonia through Central Asia, all the way up to India. He was unstoppable. But there was one test. He came upon one person who said, you cannot go beyond this point unless you can solve this riddle. Just like when Yudhishthira had to solve the riddle of the Yaksha. So this was a different riddle, but similar in nature. It's called the Gordian knot. So he was said that you need to, in order to proceed, you first must solve this puzzle of untying the Gordian knot. And this knot was very complex. You can look it up in Google, a picture of the Gordian knot. How to untie it. So Alexander was a Kshatriya. He looked at the knot. He wanted to proceed very quickly. What did he do? He took out his sword. With one stroke, he cut the knot. It's the same thing. He undid the knot. You didn't have to physically untie it. He solved the riddle very quickly. So this is also when the Pandavas were exiled to the forest and they were dying of thirst, and each one successively went. After sighting the water by climbing a tall tree and seeing there's water, they went because they didn't want to be discovered, so they had to send out a reconnaissance patrol, one by one. First the twins, and then who? Then Arjun, then Bhim, right? And each one didn't return until finally Yudhishthira was left alone. And he thought, what could it be? That my brothers, So finally he went, and he saw that great, what do they call? Baka, like Bakasura. And if you go to India, if you go to Jamuna, still they have these big, big herons. They're like 6 feet tall. They almost look like people from a distance. Such a big bird with the beak. And so this Baka was actually Dharmaraj in disguise. And he gave the same riddle. When Yudhishthira came and saw all his brothers were dead. They were all dead. Because they drank the poisoned water. They were cursed. He said, if you're smart, you'll answer my riddle. If you're smart, what does it mean? So, 4th class intelligence, 3rd class intelligence, 2nd class intelligence, 1st class intelligence. All the other Pandavas, they discounted the Yaksha. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to solve his riddle. He said, okay, go ahead. So he gave so many questions, and each one Yudhishthira was able to answer. And then finally, one question remained. What is the most wonderful thing in the material world? What is the most wonderful thing? And Yudhishthira responded correctly. The most wonderful thing is that even though everyone has seen everyone around him die, all of his family members, like his brothers, still he thinks, I will not die. So that is the most wonderful thing. Even though we're surrounded by death, and this place is called Martyaloka. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain. And for one who has died, birth is certain. So you have to break this samsara. And the only way to break that samsara, by taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. There is no other way. It cannot be done independently. And there are many stories in that regard. But we don't need many stories, we only need one. The story of the supreme archer and the supreme personality of Godhead. So just from their dialogue, 45 minutes on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all of knowledge required for humanity to perfect itself is there in that one book. So whoever gets the opportunity, which is why we stress books. Prabhupada said, this is why I stress books. We're trying to give this Bhagavad Gita to everyone. Because anyone who reads this Bhagavad Gita will be, if he's intelligent, he will become immediately liberated. Free from the bodily concept of life. That's liberation. Free from the bodily concept of life. And then if he continues, what will happen? Tyaktva deham purna janma nayati mamiti sarjana. Because one who understands my appearance and disappearance, for him, there's never birth nor death. And in the end, he comes back to me. Tyaktva deham purna janma nayati mamiti sarjana. So this is everything. We don't have to become bewildered by the yakshas, by the material energy, by the illusion, thinking that this is whatever it is, New York City, Brooklyn, the material world, the United States, all the confusion that's going on currently outside the walls of the temple. It's all temporary. And it too will pass. So don't be disturbed by it. One can easily cross beyond. Ye tama papadente tam satavadam yaham. Can easily cross beyond it. One who surrenders to Krishna. Mam eviye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. So I'll read the shloka again and then we can ask for questions. Lord Manu said, my dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are not actually offenders. Jayant, any question? Yes, we're in the back. Give.
About that one of the things that Guru does is gives you Atma Tattva Darshan. So what's the distinction between Atma Tattva Darshan, like the realization of Atma Tattva, and Atma itself? And also, is there any distinction in terms of energy and matter? Because Tattva in Hindi is also referred to as material or matter.
Okay, so give me a question one by one. What's the first question?
An elaboration on Atma Tattva and its distinction from Atma, soul.
Well, I mean, everyone is a soul, even the animals are soul. But only in the human form of life can you understand Atma Tattva Gyan. So everything has a soul. What's that verse? Vijaya Vinaya Sampanyaya Brahma Gavani Hastani. Learned sage sees with equal vision. The Brahmin, the cow, the elephant, the dog eater. But what's the difference? What does it say? Pandita Samadarshana. So the sage sees with equal vision. So we understand that everyone is spirit soul. But not everyone has knowledge of his constitutional position. So therefore, this is the distinction between liberated and conditioned. Okay, second question.
Like, is there any distinction between Atma Tattva and Atma in terms of energy and matter?
Is it what? Indian matter?
Energy and matter.
Energy. No, well, I mean, everything is, if you understand, I'm sure all these physics students understand that matter is neither created nor destroyed. It's only transmuted. And so everything we see is matter. It has nothing to do with our ability to understand knowledge. It is simply the connectivity that exists between the different conscious efforts. Just like it's described that the spirit, the Paramatma, is in every atom and in between every atom. Paramatma. So there, in one sense, that is the definition of energy, the presence of the potency of the Lord, which is infused and motivates everything into action. This is the beginning of creation. When you read Brahma Samhita, have you read Brahma Samhita? No. There's purports by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Jiva Goswami, very elaborate, describing this, everything that you want to know about spirit and matter, but you have to be in a postgraduate mood to understand it. It's not a simple text. Brahma Samhita, given to us by the Lord Chaitanya when he went to the Adi Varaha temple, Adi Keshav temple, he brought back this 5th chapter of Brahma Samhita. It is so, how can you say, beyond most persons' intellectual capacity. But he has tried his best, and anyone who wants to get a glimpse of the scholarship, spiritual scholarship, and erudition of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Jiva Goswami, he can try to understand those purports. He'll be impressed just by reading this, to know that these are our acharyas, such highly elevated souls. There's nothing else like this in the material world. No one else has such insight and understanding. And once you read it, you'll see why. So, and was there a third part to that question? Okay, yes, Mr. Microphone. Let's see.
Is it right?
Let's see.
As the purport started, but in the translation on the board didn't have soldier, on the computer screen didn't have the soldier, and did they edit out that? Because you said kshatriya, and then you said soldier, and then you said the soldier were allowed to kill. One question is that if soldiers were allowed to kill, or kshatriyas are allowed to kill, Prabhupada used the example many times that they're not implicated in any sin.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, in the modern civilization, people are killing on behalf of their government, different regime, different parties and so forth. Are they implicated in such injustice of killing, or because Srila Prabhupada used the example, the analogy, I want to know if there is some space for them, because somehow they are also exempted when they kill, generally speaking, on behalf of the government. They are exempted from being punished and so many different things.
Prabhupada gave some example that a person who is fighting on behalf of the authority, he's not subject to the reaction. But if he's killing unnecessarily, so the exact example Prabhupada gave is that the soldier fights in war authorized by the government, doesn't matter which side. Someone says this is the good side, someone says that's the good side. It's all perspective. But if he comes back from the battlefield and he kills somebody in the street and he's brought to the court and he argues that in the battlefield I killed so many people and they gave me a medal, and now I've killed one person and you want to hang me. So Prabhupada said on the battlefield he was excused because he was fighting on behalf of the country, the government, his authority. But when he was killing unnecessarily outside of that situation, then he's subject to the laws of karma and dharma. So ordinary soldier is not accountable unless he's going beyond and acting on his own. Like there was previously some famous case in the Vietnam War where somebody exercised extrajudicial killing. Do you know extrajudicial? Outside of the scope of the battlefield. He just decided all these people are complicit, I'm going to kill everyone, whole village. And then he was court-martialed, and he was sentenced. And I don't know if he died in prison, but he was in prison forever, that person. But the soldiers who carried out under his orders, they were not held responsible. But he was held responsible. Because he gave an illicit order, an illegal order. Any other questions? No? Shri Gopal Pran? No? Okay. I can't hear you.
Thank you for throwing this light. We were just reading a couple of verses back that killing is auspicious, and especially when it is done by the Supreme Lord or his devotee.
When it's done by the Supreme Lord, it's very auspicious. Everyone, of course, it described that at the time of the Kalki avatar, he's simply killing. But his killing is his mercy. Just like Sangopangascha Parshadam. Lord Chaitanya is also using weapons. But his weapons are the holy name and Sankirtan. Sangopas Yagnai Sankirtana Paya Yajanti Hi Sumedasaha. But yes, the Kalki avatar, he'll come and simply kill, and all those who are killed in his presence become liberated. So that is, but we should not wait around till that time. We should try in this point, because if we don't break free, yes, it's possible, birth after birth. The Kalki avatar will appear now in 427,000 years. There's another understanding that the Vedas have that nothing else has. They know specifically. Some people say, oh, no, the earth is going to end next year, global warming. No, it's going to end in 10 years, global cooling. So now it's this time, now it's that time. But we know from the Shastra, and the Shastra has been proven correct many times before, that it will take place 427,000 years. Pralaya is definitely coming. And these climate change people, they can wait. It will happen. The sun will become 12 times hotter, and everything will be burnt to ashes. And then there'll be devastating floods. So they'll get both things. They'll get their heat, and they'll get their flooding. They just have to wait 427,000 years. That's it. Any other questions, comments? Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki.